Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me on another edition of Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom edition Monday night. Today we're going to be discussing presets, and in particular develop presets. If we have time towards the end and we can get to talking about either presets that you can use for watermarking or presets that you can use for exporting, we'll touch on those. But in my opinion, I want to save a whole session just for export presets, because there's so much that you can do with presets after you've done all your editing to export them out. So we'll cover that next month. This month, we're going to be discussing presets that you can use to speed your production while editing. And in particular, I'm going to touch on some the new changes that Adobe introduced into Lightroom with the ISO variant presets. So we'll be touching on those. First, I want to mention that we're discussing it a little bit earlier. The Photo Hunt Challenge cards. I started developing this. I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even a little longer. And I've led sessions with some variation of this in the past, and it's always been very well received. It's gotten good reviews from the people who participated, and they always enjoyed it. I developed it into 104 cards. So basically it's if you think about decks of cards, playing cards, it's 2 decks worth of cards. And I sent them out for production. They've been printed and they are on the way back to me. That being said, I am scheduling an official reveal, I guess you could call it, photo hunt challenge that we're going to be doing in the Hamden area. And as you can see, which way here? I scheduled it for the 22nd of August, which is a Saturday. We're going to meet in Hamden. And if you're familiar with the Hamden area, the Hamden City Hall, that little corner has, a lot of variety for a photographer. It's got a bunch of little shops. Hopefully there'll be people there. I know we're still practicing social distancing. So, everybody's going to be wearing masks, but it's going to present a challenge in its own. So we have people, we have shops that will provide visual interest. There's a little park, a little green area for, getting anything, with some semblance of nature to it. There's traffic, and I don't know what else there is in that area, but it's all within a small walkable area. And the way the photo hunt works is you pick a card at random, and on the card it will present you with some form of a challenge that you have to complete. And I usually do it where you're given a set time period, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. You have a very short window to go out and complete that challenge. And we get back together, we exchange images, take a look at each other's images, talk about any issues that we came up. We grab another card and we do it all over again. It's just a fun activity for small groups to be able to go out and really enjoy what we love to do with our cameras, and that's take pictures. But this one challenges you a little bit to create something that may not be what you would normally shoot. So you may draw a card that takes you completely out of your comfort zone, and you are now forced to complete that challenge. So it's also a great way to learn the art and science of photography as well. So hopefully you can mark your calendars for August 22nd. That's a Saturday. We're going to get together at 10 a.m. and we're going to go until, whenever people call it quits. And because it's kind of like an unboxing, first impression, I'm going to pick your brains afterwards and get your opinion about the cards, what you think of it, and things like that, so I can use for developing it further if it needs to be developed further, and for marketing. So that said, we're still social distancing, so I haven't really been doing a lot with any kind of live events. I've been kind of concentrated on this format here with the Zoom meetings, and it seems to be fairly popular. And it's great because you can be right there in your living room watching this presentation and learning something in the process. So hopefully this has a value. So let your friends know, all your photography friends. If you're in a club, let them know that I do this on Monday nights. And like you understand, this is being recorded. It's going to get uploaded to YouTube, so you can always refer back to it if you want. All right. That being said, let's get into tonight's presentation. And tonight's presentation is on develop presets. Now, Lightroom has several areas where you can apply presets. One is when you first bring your images in through the import. Let me open up the import dialog. Right here in the apply during import, you can select any of your develop presets from this drop-down list. Now, Lightroom comes with a bunch of presets already built into it, but there are some problems with them that I'll go over shortly. And then you could also add copyright information, okay? And those are available as a preset as well. That metadata information is any information that's non-visual that gets embedded into your image file. So, for example, you're all familiar with EXIF information. EXIF information is metadata that your camera writes to every single file, and it contains what camera you used, what lens you used, what settings your camera was on, what focal length, the whole 9 yards. So if you ever need to figure out what settings you used on a particular image, you can always open up that metadata and it's right there. Now, because Lightroom tracks all this in its own database, like any other database, it is searchable. So you can search by specific camera bodies, by specific camera lenses, even by specific focal lengths. So if you want to see everything that was taken at 24 millimeters, all you got to do is type in a search, and it's going to display every single image in your library that was shot at 24 millimeters. So it's great. Now, in addition to that, you can add more information to your files. And typically, this would be information such as maybe your website, if you're a professional photographer, or if you are even a hobbyist photographer that sells your images. You want people to be able to find you. So you can embed certain things like phone numbers, website addresses. All right. If you have a physical address, let's say you have a physical address to a store, you can put that into it. All this information can be created as a preset, and you can then embed it into images. Now, the nice thing about presets is you can have multiples. All right. So, for example, if you have images that you know are going to go for sale, they may have one particular set of information, such as your phone number, your contact information, your professional website, or a website where you sell your images through. All right. And family images. Oh, my voice is going to go on me. I can tell already. Family images, you don't need that professional information. So for family images, you may just have your name and your copyright information, and pretty much nothing more than that. Okay? So you can build different presets to do very specific things at very specific times. All right. Now, we're not going to go into metadata presets. I wanted to point out that that is available, and you can access that right here in the import dialog. All right. So all you got to do is where it says apply during import. It's right there where it says metadata. Just click on that, and you can pick whatever one you want. Now, by default, I only have one, and that's my copyright information, and it gets applied on every single image that comes in. I don't differentiate for mine. All right. Again, that's my workflow. Right? You've heard me say it before. I tend to be fairly lazy with certain tasks. All right? If I can automate it, I will automate it. It's less things that I have to think about. And for me, having to switch between one copyright information and another copyright information just doesn't make any sense. So I just create one. And if it's a family photo, hey, it's still going to have my professional information on it. Nobody will see it, so I really don't care, but it's there. I don't have to think about it. Okay? All right. So that's the metadata information. All right. When you export an image, this is where the export presets reside. And as you can see, I have a bunch of them here. And I tend to build presets for specific jobs. All right. So for example, here towards the top, this is a current client that I am doing a website for. So I have presets that are built specifically to export images for very specific parts of a website. Once I'm done with that project, all these presets here will get eliminated. All right, so these are temporary presets. Other presets that I use all the time, and they kind of sort of morph over time, are my social media presets. These presets here, whenever I want to share anything on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, I have readily available here. And I use these all the time. I even have ones for when I want to create a new avatar for some of these social media sites. An avatar is basically a photograph of myself. Every so often, I'll be my own subject for a portrait session, and I'll update my avatar. So I have a couple of presets just to generate an avatar for a lot of these sites. All right. For forums, for Facebooks, and just for general sharing on social media. I have for my portfolios, whether it's for a stock site or for going, being sent for print, or if it's going for my own personal website, I have presets for those as well. All right. Now, like I said, today we're going to be basically focusing on develop presets, not necessarily export presets. We'll discuss these next month. But I just want you to be aware that when you export an image, you have the ability to create multiple presets depending on what you're going to use your image for. Okay? All right. What we will be discussing today are presets that you would find in the develop module. So if we go here to the develop module, okay, and we look over on the left-hand side, you're going to see a tab that says presets. And you will have a series of presets already built in when you first install Lightroom. And occasionally, whenever Lightroom releases a new version, they sometimes will add or rearrange some of these. Now, if you have an older version of Lightroom, you're going to see that your list is going to be different than mine. Simply because back a few years ago, Lightroom redid their presets. And then just recently, when they did that whole big changeover, or earlier this year, they did a lot of changes to the presets as well. So you may notice a big difference between yours and mine if you have an older version. All right. Okay. So what are presets? Whenever we are doing any kind of editing to an image, we will go over on the right-hand side and we'll go down through these tabs, the basic, and we'll make changes to these sliders, and we'll go to the tone curve. We'll make changes to our color, whatever it is that is going to make our image look the way we want it. Something that matches, what we perceive our image to be. Any of these settings on the right-hand side here can be saved as a preset. Now, the problem is that there is a right way and a wrong way of creating presets. And we have to work within the limitations of the program. Now, one of the limitations is presets with sliders are not progressive, meaning that if I take my exposure, I'm going to make the exposure 0 here. If I say, okay, I'm going to open up my exposure 10 points. Ooh, let's do 1 point. Okay. I'm going to move the slider in the positive direction 1 point. All right. Or 1 stop. Some people will refer to it. And I make a preset for that one, for adding 1 stop of light to my exposure slider, and I save it. And if I click on it, it's going to add that the exposure to the +1. If I click on it again, it's not going to add a second one. All it does, the preset moves it from 0 to the 1 position, and that's it. It's not cumulative, meaning that you can't just keep clicking and it'll add and add and add and add. Unfortunately, I wish they would do something along that lines. That would be fantastic, but unfortunately, that is one of the restrictions that we have. So that means that we have to be smart about how we build certain presets. All right, now, if you've ever gone online to a lot of these, professional photographers who say, hey, you can edit your images just like this one and just like this one, just with a couple of clicks by buying my preset package. There's a problem. Most of those presets are built to give one image that one specific look. So what happens is that you'll pick out an image that you want to make it look like theirs. You click on their preset. It moves all the sliders for you, and you look at it and go, oh my God, that's horrendous. It doesn't look anything like their image. Well, that's because a lot of the times these presets are purpose built. And if your image does not meet the same purpose, it's not going to match. All right. So while you can build your own presets for that, I usually say don't bother, simply because each individual image is going to give you its own specific problems that you have to solve as an editor. For example, and this is a common problem that a lot of photographers face. You'll go out and you'll say, oh, look at this pretty building that I photographed, all right? And you take various angles, various focal lengths, all right? And then you'll walk around and you take a couple of shots, maybe some close-ups, some distance shots, some wide shots, all kinds of shots, all right? And you may even do some bracketing where you're not sure if you caught the exposure properly. So you're going to tweak your exposure a little bit here on this shot. On the next shot is going to be a little lighter. On the following shot it's going to be a little darker. So your exposure may be all over the place. So you come back and you open it up and you got 30 images of the same building at different exposures, different focal lengths, different compositions. Each one of those, even though it's the same subject that's lit very similarly, it's going to give you different challenges when editing. So you really can't have a one-click solves your entire problem kind of preset. But we can use presets to help automate certain tasks. All right. For example, and I've mentioned this in the past, I have a color deficiency with light reds and light greens. The really light pastel pinky reds and the pastel greens. I have a hard time seeing them. So for me, I have a preference for slightly more saturated and more contrasty images because they appeal to me personally. So when I edit my images, I edit for my eyes. I edit for my taste. So I can't rely on somebody else's preset to edit according to how I like my images. However, there are certain tasks that I find that I do over and over and over again that I'm going to create a preset for. So that way when I'm editing, what I can do is, instead of clicking on somebody else's preset, I'm going to click on my own preset in order to do a bulk of the editing for me without me having to go and individually move all the sliders. Does that make sense? All right. Now, the nice thing about it is that I've taken several of those presets that I created really, really early on in my career, bundled them together into a single preset, and loaded it into my import dialog, so that every time Lightroom imports an image, it's already going to edit all these menial tasks for me without me even having to worry about it. All right. And typically, well, actually, let me show you what it looks like. Okay, we'll just use this image here. I'm going to reset this image. All right, reset. And you can see everything's down to center here. All right. And then in the user preset, I have a preset right here that's called import, pop, and squat. Import, pop, and squat. And all that does, all right, and actually you can see that there's a little plus next to it. That little plus says that that preset is my import preset. All right, that lets me know that that preset is being applied on every single image that gets imported into Lightroom. Now, if you notice, as I hover over these, it is altering the look of my live preview. All right, so you can't preview what each one of these presets is going to do before you even apply it, which is kind of nice. All right, so I click on my import, pop, and squat, and I'll talk about the name later. All right, but you'll see over in the develop module that it has moved a lot of these sliders for me. All right, and if you look in the highlights, it brought my highlights down. It opened up my shadows a little bit. Didn't do anything to the blacks and whites because I normally do those individually according to the image. But this right here tends to add a little bit of contrast. All right, but in particular, the presence, it adds a lot of texture. You can see it adds 40 points of texture. That's quite a lot. And the clarity is brought up 20 points, which is also a lot. But for me, that makes my images look better. Subjective? Absolutely. All right. All right, yeah. All right, so down here we also have my vibrance and saturation. All right, again, this is to add a little bit of saturation to the image through vibrance. Vibrance is saturation, but it's confined more to the midtones, while saturation is across the entire spectrum from black to white. Okay, so it adds a little bit of vibrance to the image. Again, it's boosting color vibrancy to compensate for my faulty eyes. That's personal. That's what I like. All right, so the first thing I want to invite you to do is really, when you sit down to edit your images, start paying a little bit closer attention to what you are doing to your images. Now, if you are new to editing, you may have no clue. You may say, oh, I just moved sliders until I see something that I like. That's okay. However, when you find something that you like, go, create a collection so you can see all your images together that you've edited. And then just take a few minutes and say, okay, what did I do to this image? Well, I moved this, and I moved this. All right. And then you look at the next image. What did you do? And you go on through all your images and you start taking notes. What is the least common denominator that you do to every image that you edit? There's a great place to start in building a preset. All right, a functional preset, one that will take a lot of the work of editing for you. All right, that way it will speed up your process, and it'll start the process, what I normally refer to as normalizing an image. All right, what do I mean by, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So I'm following along with you, and I made some changes to an image.
Yep.
And so I brought my highlights down, I brought my shadows up.
Okay.
Right? Or the other way around. Shadows, I lightened my shadows and brought my highlights down. How do I make the preset?
Okay, well, we're gonna get into that. Right now, I want to give you an understanding of why you would need a preset.
Oh.
All right, and a little introduction of what you would put into a preset. Okay, we'll actually get into building it in a little bit, but before we actually build it, you need to be able to build it properly with a specific function in mind, rather than having a bunch of presets that kind of do random things without thought or pattern. All right, I want you to start getting into mindset that when I build a preset, it's going to serve a function, and that function is going to help me either get closer to a perfect edit or automate certain tasks for me in order to free me up doing other things. All right?
Okay, thank you.
No problem, no problem. But it was a good question nonetheless.
Thanks.
All right, so so identifying what you do repetitively is one good place to start. All right? Another type of preset may be one that maybe you don't do to every image. Like, for example, one preset that we will be building is a vignette. All right, a vignette is a darkening of the corners in order to bring focus from the viewer to the center of your image. All right, it's a subtle little darkening. It's an exposure change to the corners to help bring focus to the middle of your image. Not every single image needs it. You may not want it on every single image. So there's a perfect preset that you want but don't necessarily need all the time. Now, why would you want it? You can say, well, all I got to do is go to the slider and slide it. Again, you got to realize that a preset is to help facilitate repetitive tasks and make it faster. So what's easier? Me going to the left and doing one click, or you going to drill down, find the panel, open it up, make your adjustments, look at it, and then get back to editing? All right. Some may argue it's not a big deal. All right. But here's another thing. How about consistency? One of the things that we want to achieve to a certain extent, and some will argue this, is a style. All All right. When somebody looks at Brian's image, they're going to say, oh yeah, Brian took that one. When somebody looks at Pam's image, they want to say, oh yeah, that definitely looks like a photo taken by Pam. All right. We imbue a certain style whenever we do any kind of editing. And your style is going to change and morph and get better as you learn the tools. But one of the things that creates this style is a certain consistency across images. All right? It's not like somebody can look at one individual image and say, oh yeah, that's Bonnie's image. Okay? No, they need to build up a reference after seeing several of Bonnie's images and identifying that, hey, you know, Bonnie tends to do this little thing with all her images that gives it her style. Being able to create that look consistency is one of the things that presets can help you with. All right. So for example, let's start off easy. We're going to build a vignette preset. And what I want you to do is first look at the presets that I have built here. Okay. Now, actually, let's see. Are there any? Yes, right here. Let me hide this one. In the presets that come with Lightroom, there is a vignetting folder preset here. All right. And it has none. It's got light. It's got medium. And it's got heavy. Okay. Now, you can use these. It's perfectly fine. All right. If they work for you. All right. But I want you to follow me along and build a set of vignettes for yourself, just so that you understand how to build presets. Okay. The one thing that you'll notice that they did right is they built 3 strengths, 3 flavors, you might want to say. And along with it, they also created one to remove the effect. All right. When you build a series of presets, you want to be able to build one that removes it as well. Because as you're editing, you're making a lot of changes throughout your develop module. In the basics, in the tone curve, in the color, in the texture, everything. You're making changes all over the place. If you need to back out of a specific change, it's easier to go and click on the vignette none than it is to drill down through here and say, okay, well, all right, where is it? Oh, it's in the detail. It's in the, no, it's not in the detail. It's in the transform. No, it's not in the transform. It's in the effects. Oh, now I just wasted a whole bunch of time trying to remember where that stupid preset changed it in order to undo it. Okay? It's easier to just go over to the side in the preset, and whatever it is that I applied, I just click on none. All right? So they did that properly. That is an important lesson for building presets. All right, so let's take a look at the presets that I have for my vignette. You're going to notice that there's a certain convention to it. All right. One, it's in its own little folder called vignette. All right. And you're going to notice that it starts off with an underscore. The underscore tells me it's my presets. Because if you look at the presets that come standard with Lightroom, they don't have anything preceding their labels. So that little underscore, that little underscore separates my presets from their presets. All right, there's no second guessing. Oh, especially because once you build a preset, you're going to be using it forever. Imagine going back 2 years and say, oh, is this a preset that I built or is this one that I imported? All right, it's got an underscore. It's my preset. Okay. Second part, you're going to notice that the name tells me exactly what that preset does. All right, so the first 4 gives me a dark preset, or a dark vignette. All right, so it darkens the corners. All right, and the plus 20 tells me at what strength. All right, now I could have very easily done the same thing that Lightroom did, light, medium, dark. All right, but for me, the numbers made better sense for me. All right, so for me, what I did is, right here is my post-crop vignette, okay? And you can see that everything is zeroed out, okay? If I'm going to click on the plus 50, all right? And you're going to notice that it moved the slider, all right? It moved the slider over, and in this case, it says negative 50, all right? But wait a minute, you said that's plus 50, okay? From this 0 point, if I go to the negative side, it's adding darkness to my corner. If I go to the side, so keep in mind with exposure, plus adds light, negative takes away light. It's the same thing with the vignette preset, or the vignette slider. Plus adds light to the corners, negative takes light from the corners. Okay. However, as a vignette, I am adding dark. All right, so the first part of the name is what is it doing? It's adding darkness. All right, so for me, it makes more sense to say it's adding 50 points of dark to my vignette rather than saying it's a negative 50 vignette, which could mean one thing or another if I forget. All right. In this case, there's no question in my mind what that preset's doing. Okay. And then I have 2 others that do a light vignette. I don't do too much with light vignettes, so I don't have too many of those. All right. But for the 1 or 2 occasions that I do use them, I have them here. All right. And I have one specifically for when I do product photography. When I have a white background, I want to make sure that the entire edge around my finished image is flat 100% white. So I have a very special vignette that guarantees that that edge is going to be 100% white. All right. And all you got to do is look up here in the histogram. All right. You're going to see some numbers underneath here. As I hover over this, you'll see that it's reading 100 all the way across, no matter where I go along this edge. Okay? So that's going to guarantee me, that's a purpose-built preset that guarantees me a white border. And then, of course, the last one here is remove my vignette. It undoes any vignette. Okay? And all that does is it returns the vignette setting back to 0. Okay? All right. So let's build a preset. When you are building a preset, don't worry about what the image looks like. Okay? Don't worry if you're not finished editing. All right? Because a lot of times you're going to be building a preset for one specific purpose. So what you need to concentrate is that one specific task. So for example, we're going to build a dark vignette that's going to add a +10. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and reset my image just by clicking on the reset. You don't have to, but I'm doing it just for illustrative purposes. All right. We're going to go to our effects. We're going to open up our effects panel. And that is our post-crop vignette. All right. There's also a section for grain. We're going to disregard that. Okay. And you're going to have several sliders. The first slider and the only slider that's highlighted when everything's zeroed out is the amount. All right. In this case, we're going to add 10 points of darkness. So thinking about it, we're going to remove 10 from our exposure in the corners. So we're going to go down. All right. And you can move the sliders until you get to 10. Or what I like to do is just click on that little box and go ahead and with my keyboard, I'm going to put in -10. All right. And it's going to automatically position that slider to the -10. Now, once a value is entered, you're going to notice that the rest of these sliders are now active. You can make changes to them. The first one underneath that is our midpoint. All that does is it controls where the midpoint is. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to maximize it to a -100 just so you can see what the effect is. All right. By default, that slider is at 50, meaning 50% of the image. All right. We can take our midpoint and we can tighten it so that it creates more of a spotlight. Okay. Or we can expand it so that it's only touching just the very tips of the corners. Why you would need it at this extreme, who knows, but it's there. All right. So you can have this wherever you want. All right. Now, if I was building a preset where it adds this much darkness, I might want to bring, instead of putting my midpoint at 50, I may want to open it up so it's just coming into the corners a little bit. All right. So maybe even 75. I tend to like round numbers that make sense. All right. So 75. All right. So that's the midpoint. The next one down is the roundness, or how round your vignette is in relation to the rectangle of the viewport. All right. We can take it and we can keep it really round. Okay. Almost, a full circle. Or we can start kind of pushing it into the sides. All right, you can see that there's a little bit of vignette here, all right, that runs down. But imagine our circle has now passed beyond the border of our image. And because it can't go outside, it's just kind of being pressed up against that edge. All right, so we can take it and we can create just a little outside rim. All right, it's kind of like how I built this one. All right, what I did is I just really pushed it to the end. And you can see the roundness. All right, actually, let's see. You can see the roundness is at -100. And my midpoint is at 0. All right, so I pushed these to the extreme. Okay.
Hey, Doc.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Over here on your where you have the pointer at, what how do I get to that screen? What is it under?
We're in the develop.
Okay.
All right. So if you're in the library, you got to go into the develop.
I'm there. I'm in the develop.
Okay. And then on the right-hand side, you're going to see a series of tabs: basic, tone curve, color, split toning.
Yeah.
Keep going down. You're going to see effects. All right. And it's in the effects tab.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. If you didn't catch it previously, if you right-click on any of those tabs, it's going to bring up a little menu. You want to make sure you have solo mode selected. All right. That way it keeps only one tab open and it'll close the other ones. All right. So it just makes it easy to kind of navigate through without having all the tabs open for you. Okay. All right. We're good? All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So you should understand what link does now, and you should understand what roundness does. All right. So all of these settings you can change, to taste. Now feather by default is at 100. All right, and you can see that when you bring it down to 0, it's going to start creating a very hard edge. Okay, why you would want it? Who knows? All right. Maybe you want to do something like this for your image. Okay. All right. And you can see how it really just pushes to the corners with the roundness. Okay. All right. But most of the time, you want a very soft transition. You don't want a very drastic transition. All right. So often, I will keep this at 50%. All right. And what that does is it creates more of a natural darkening rather than a very obvious one. All right. Now the highlights, I don't have any highlights in my corners. Here, let me see if I can explain this. All right, I'm going to put the corner right here where this bright section of water is. Okay. The highlights, all right, slider dictates how the vignette, the darkening, it affects any bright highlight areas in your image. All right, so we have the water, and the water has a bunch of specular highlights on the rippled surface. Okay, with 0, what it's doing is it's saying disregard any highlights. Just whatever highlights are there, go ahead and darken them. When I start bringing it over, you can see that my highlights are coming through the dark. Right? And all the way, all right, I see nothing but highlights. All right, and everything else, my midtones and my darks, get darkened even more. Again, to taste, depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. All right, oftentimes, anywhere between 0, meaning you're not going to affect any of the highlights, to about 25 looks natural. All right. Beyond 25, it starts looking a little funky, and then you're going to need to adjust accordingly. Okay. However, me being the lazy photographer, I like my free presets to be kind of like click it once, do its job. I don't want to worry about it anymore. All right, so maybe I'll keep it to about, maybe 20 or none. Okay. In my opinion, having a little bit of highlight gives it a little bit more texture in the corners, so that works. Okay. If you don't want it, you just put it to 0. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to create one at -10. All right. We're going to do this just for demonstration purposes. If you notice, I don't have one at a 10 because, in my opinion, that barely adds anything. All right. If I click this little icon right here, this little switch, if I click that on and off, you're going to see how it affects it. All right. And hopefully you'll see that when you flip it back and forth, you'll notice the change. So it's a very small, very subtle change. But sometimes that's all your image needs. It's just that little subtle touch to bring the viewer's eye into the image. Okay? All right. So we're going to say we're going to add -10, so 10 to the dark side. Midpoint at 50%, so I'm going to keep that the default. Roundness at 0, the default. Feathering at 50%, default. And I'm going to keep my highlights to 0. All right. All right. And then you also have here whether you want highlight priority, color priority, or a paint overlay. I normally don't bother with these others. I just want to worry about actual light, the luminosity. All right, so I'll keep it to highlight priority. All right. Once I have my settings according to what I want to build my preset, now it's time to build it. All right. So we got our settings. We're going to come over to our preset panel. All right. And at the very top, there's a little icon. It's a little plus symbol with a little drop down arrow next to it. Okay. All you got to do is click on that little plus, and you're given several choices. You can create a preset, you can import a preset, or you can manage your presets. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a preset. Okay. And you're presented with a with a dialog box. Excuse me, my voice is going. All right, you're presented with a dialog box. Now this dialog box is going to remember what you used the last time. So one of the first things that I do when this dialog box comes up, I go all the way down to the bottom and I click on check none. And all that does is it clears my entire preset except for one thing, and that's the process version. All right, you want to keep that on because it basically just says what is the process version of Lightroom that this preset is being built on. All right, so it's going to track that. Okay. Once I've cleared it, now I can start making my preset. We're going to go to the top and we're going to give it a name. All right. Now, I'm going to follow the convention that I've set already with my other presets. All right. What is my preset for? Well, it's going to add darkness as a vignette. All right. And it's going to add 10 points of dark which in reality is a negative number, but in my mind, I'm adding 10 darkness. So plus 10. All right. Next one is the group. What group do I want to put it into? Well, I'm going to put it into my group that I created specifically for vignettes. Okay? And then now the middle part of this dialog is going to let Lightroom know, okay, which of these settings am I going to record for this particular preset. All right, and in this case, I want to get my vignette. Okay, so and the effects. All right, you notice that here's your basic tone. All right, so it's all labeled according to all these panels here. All right, you have your basic panel, you have your tone curve, your dehaze, sharpening. All right, we're going to go to the effects. All right, and in the effects, just like we have here, we have post-crop vignette and grain. I don't care about the grain. I don't want to do anything with the grain. I am just going to select post-crop vignette. Now, what happens if I accidentally click on grain? All right, whatever is here, that's going to apply. So guess what? If later on I'm making changes and I add grain to my image because I want it a little bit grainy looking, and then later on I go, hey, I'm going to add a vignette. And in that vignette, it says, oh, that grain should be 0. It's going to completely wipe it out. So you have to be careful how you build your presets. This is why I prefer presets that do very specific tasks rather than presets that load up a bunch of things and then you don't know what changed where. Okay, so we're going to make sure that only post-crop vignette is selected. Okay, now down here we have our ISO settings. This is new to Lightroom. They just recently added it. All right, post-crop vignette is ISO independent, so we don't need to worry about this. All right. Once we've selected it, we can go ahead and click on Create. And you're now going to see that preset gets added to your list of presets.
Got real quick question.
Yep.
I didn't see if you checked or unchecked process version.
It's checked.
It's checked. Okay.
Yeah, you want to keep that checked.
Okay, thank you.
All right. That just records what version of Lightroom you're using. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Or the process engine that Lightroom's using. Okay. All right. So in a nutshell, that's how you build a preset. That's the technical steps. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this. I'm going to delete it. Okay. All right. So you built a preset. All right. In this case, let's say you built several of them. And you say, okay, well, I made a bunch of these presets that does something to my image. I want to make sure that I can back out of that preset, right? So for this, we're going to create, once you build all your presets for your vignette, you're going to create one more. And what that does is, for example, let's do this one plus 50, all right? Because you can really see the effect, okay? You can see that's adding negative 50 to the dark side, all right? What I'm going to do is where it says post-crop vignette, if I double click on that, it resets this whole panel, okay? Resets it. Now, I'm going to record that reset as its independent preset. So we're going to go back up to the top, click on the plus, create preset. Now remember, it remembers everything that you used previously, all right? So now this makes making presets a little bit easier because, for example, you start off with plus 10 to the dark, plus 20, plus 30, plus 50. Now we go to our 0, all right? We're going to create a new preset. We're going to call it remove, okay? And I capitalized the word remove simply because I want that to stand out a little bit more in the list, okay? Now, if you want to float your remove preset to the top, you can use a non-alphanumeric character like an underscore before it, and it'll float it to the top. I don't care about that. You know, I'm just going to keep it wherever. So I'm going to remove vignette. Okay. And pretty much the name tells me exactly what this preset does. All right. Now remember, it remembers everything from previously. So it's in the group vignette. The effects is my post-crop vignette. My process version is still active. All right, nothing else is going to change. Everything else is deselected. I'm going to go ahead and say create. And then we go here. There it is. Remove vignette. Okay, makes sense? All right. Now, if we look at my other ones here, I have ones for noise and sharpen. All right. I have, all right. Remember earlier I said I have a preset that does a bunch of different things that I do to each and every one of my images. Well, each one of those steps I actually have a preset for. All right. Here's my clarity. All right. I add a certain amount of clarity to all my images. There's my clarity. All right. And because I'm adding one, I also have one that removes it. Okay. So now that master preset that does all these things to my image, if for any reason I say, you know what? I know it added clarity, but I'm thinking for this particular image, it's a little strong. All I have to do is come here and click on Clarity Reset, and it brings it back to 0. Just that one little part of my entire edit. Okay. I have one here for noise reduction. This is an old one. This is pre-ISO variant feature. All right. So I actually need to build a preset that takes advantage of the new ISO variants. All right. And then, of course, I have one noise reduction reset. Okay. Sharpen 50, sharpen reset. Okay. Now, the reason the naming here is a little different rather than saying remove, remove, remove is because I have a bunch of different presets here with different names. If I started with remove, it would put all my removes between my noise reduction and my sharpen. It would put it in a weird position. All right. So I actually have it so that it now groups it clarity. All right. Oh, this is the ISO variant that I built when I went over the new feature. I have noise reduction, I have my sharpen, and I have my texture. Okay. So I can add and I can remove very specific parts of my editing process to and from my image. Okay. All right. Above that, I have one that this was actually built for a master class that I did about 8 years ago. All right. And it was just an exercise on creating progressive presets. All right. Now remember what I said earlier. Lightroom does not have the ability to create progressive functions, meaning I can't say add one stop of light and then I click it again and it adds another stop, and I click it again and it adds another stop. It's determined by where along that slider it is placed. All right. So in order to get any kind of variance, we actually need to go and click on a very specific one. All right. But the nice thing about this is because I can hover my mouse over any one of these presets, I can preview that preset live and see exactly what it's doing to my image. So you may have, here we go. I'll pull this one up. You can say, well, I don't know if this is underexposed or overexposed or what. All right. So I can go here from my 0, all right, and I can go from exposure 1/3 of a stop more, 2/3 of a stop, a full stop. I can just hover over these and say, okay, all right, how do I want to make my image look? All right, and at any point I can say, well, I want to make it look like daylight. All right, that looks good to me. All right, and all I got to do is click on it and it is locked in. So now we go to our basic tab. You can see that it's brought the exposure up to 2 1/3. Exposure 2 1/3 here, 2 1/3 here. All right. From here, if I need to change it, I can come here. All right, then having to go back here. All right, but if I anytime want to reset it because I changed it, I can always come back, and it's going to precisely place it at that specific point. Okay, or I can say, well, what does it look like if I underexpose? All right, by a stop. Okay, well, that's making my sky look awesome. All right, I need to open up my shadows a little bit. Okay, all right, so while these particular presets aren't the most beneficial, you can see the value of something like this, where you can build it once, and then once it's built, you can use it for whatever purposes you need. All right, to pre-visualize an image if you want. Okay, so that's presets based on exposure. All right, and the last one I have here is these are kind of built specifically to give me a certain look. All right, and let's see, bring this up. All right, give me an orange-green split or an orange-blue split, okay? And what this does is it works with my, my split toning, all right? So what that's doing is it's taking the shadows and it's pushing it into the blues and taking my highlights and pushing it into the oranges, all right? Or I can go here and I can do that. It was popular in the 90s, that kind of like orange-green look that was popular. Oh, I'm having The Matrix. It was very popular in a movie like The Matrix, right? Where all the shadows had this green cast to it and people had a slightly more orangey cast. So a very cinematic look. All right, I built those to kind of replicate those. But those are very specific presets that don't work across the board for every image. All right, so in this case, here's a perfect example of a preset that you click once and then adjust to taste. Okay? All right. All right, and then I have a bunch of one-ofs. All right, I have one that gives me kind of like this cinematic grunge look. I have this one. This one I use when I want to pre-visualize my highlights. Okay. Let's see. And of course, I should probably have one that resets it from there. All right. I have a preset that adds lens correction. All right. So actually, let's make this one, because this is another one that you should have. All right. Different lenses are going to create a certain amount of distortion in your image. All right. So for example, a fisheye lens is going to have heavy distortion, where a wide angle lens will have less distortion. All right. And a telephoto lens may even have a different type of barrel distortion. Okay. So a lot of times I want that distortion removed from my image. Okay. So let's take this image. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to go to lens correction. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and reset it. All right. Lens correction, profile. All right. And you're going to see two check marks. The first one says remove chromatic aberrations. The second one is enable profile corrections. All right. So let me go over very quickly what these are. Zoom lenses. The glass inside the zoom lenses tend to move according to what focal range you are at. All right, so if you have a telephoto zoom lens, when you turn the zoom ring, those lens elements are going to shift in order to give you different variations of magnification. All right. Now what happens is, as those lens elements shift, the light coming in and passing through them may split like a prism. This is called chromatic aberration. And often you'll see it as maybe a blue and red fringe to your image, or maybe a yellow and green fringe to your image. Okay. And often you'll see it if you really, really zoom in to an image. All right, this one's not that bad. Okay, but you may see like a blue, just a pixel wide blue halo. All right, that's because the light coming in is the color spectrum is being shifted. The blue is being shifted out of sync with everything else. All right. What this does is it resyncs that blue shift back into proper alignment. For the most part, it's an artificial shift, so obviously there's going to be some room for error. All right. But if you check that, what it does is it takes the profile of your lens and says, okay, Bonnie was using an 18 millimeter lens. According to the profile, this adds this much red and this much blue fringing. We're going to compensate for that. Okay. The second one is enable profile corrections. All right. And that one basically tells Lightroom, let's look up your lens, see what kind of distortions are associated, and we're going to apply corrections for that distortion. Whether it's lens distortion because it's a wide angle lens, or it's vignetting in the corners because it's a zoom telephoto zoom lens, whatever it is, it's going to apply the corrections. Often than not, you want these corrections. All right? So you might as well let Lightroom handle those corrections on its own without you even having to think about it. Okay? So I check these two. All right? Then I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus symbol, create a preset. All right? Check none. All right? I want to clear everything. All right? We're going to go lens correction. All right? You can put it wherever you want. I'm going to put it in my user default. Okay? And the only thing I'm going to do is where it says lens corrections, I'm going to click on that. All right? You can see it right here, lens correction. All right? And it's going to select everything else. I want everything here selected. All right? Because this has nothing to do with ISO, we're going to leave that alone. All right? And we're going to go ahead and click create. All right? We go down, and there's our lens correction. Okay? All right. And here's my previous one. It's just a slightly different name. Lens correction auto. Okay? All right. Now, here's where you can get really, really creative. All right? I have my lens correction. I have my where was it? My clarity and my sharpen and my texture. I have all these presets that I do all the time for my image. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reset this image. All right, I'm going to say, okay, I want to add clarity. I want to add sharpening. I want to add my texture. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to add my lens correction. Okay, so now if we look at it here, all right, I'm going to say, oh, I want to add 40 to my clarity. Let's make that 20. Okay. There's my basic. It's adding presence. All right. Nothing to my tone curve. Nothing to my color profile. Okay. Nothing to split toning. And the detail, all right, it added a little bit of sharpening. There it is, 50 points of sharpening. In my lens correction, there it is. It added, remove chromatic aberrations, enable profile, that whole 9 yards. My transform, nothing there. Effects, nothing else. All right. So now what I've done is I've identified all these presets that I built that I do over and over and over again. All right, and I've applied all of those to one image, and I made sure that everything else is 0. Okay? So now I am going to add, oh, I hate my mouse. I'm going to add another preset. All right, create preset. I'm going to check none. I want to make sure that this whole thing is cleared out. I'm going to call this my import preset. All right, just for Skittles. All right, and the user preset, I'm going to keep it under user preset. All right, I don't need to create a new group or anything. Okay, and I'm going to only select those changes that I made. All right, so I did not change anything to the white balance. I did not change everything in the basic tone, but I did change certain things. All right, actually, let's see, none of these. I didn't change any of those. All right. I did change texture and I did change clarity. All right. I did not do anything to dehaze or sharpening. I didn't do anything to, oh yes, I did. I did a little bit of vibrance. Okay. Or did I? All right. I think I did. I didn't do anything in split toning. I did noise reduction. All right. And I did do my lens correction, nothing else. Okay. So this preset, what I've done is I've taken those separate little presets that I do all the time, and I'm grouping it into a single preset. And I'm going to say create. All right. So now I have a preset called import preset. I can now open up I'm going to go to the library module. I'm going to click on my import button. It's going to open up my import dialog box. And over here where it says apply during import, I can go down to my user preset and there it is, import preset. Okay, I'm going to click on it. All right. And now, every time I import an image into Lightroom, it's going to take all those changes and apply it to every single image. Now I don't have to worry about them. All right. Okay. Why would you want this? Well, if you've followed any of my previous editing lessons, the first step in editing is what I term normalizing your image. All right, normalizing the image is those changes that are designed to make your image look normal to your eyes. Nothing artistic being applied. All right, this includes correcting for horizons, making sure the horizon's level. If you're doing anything with buildings, maybe you want your uprights to be, nice and even. And for me, normalizing it means bringing my clarity and my saturation to the point where it looks proper to my eyes. All right. So it's all those little things that I do to every single image that passes through my editing program. All right. I've automated it. Now, at this point, I don't have to worry about normalizing it. I've done that on import. I can now concentrate on artistic edits. Where do I want to place my light? What part of the image do I want to bring forward? What part of the image do I want to push back? Okay. I've taken the mundane and let the software handle it for me. Make sense? Okay. Awesome. I know I kind of covered a lot. There's a little bit of repetition. Hopefully, helps solidify the process. Any questions? Where did I lose you guys?
Doc, how do you get rid of presets that are there that you know you'll never use again?
Okay, good question. Let's go back over because, like you noticed, it comes with a bunch of presets already. Okay, all of these presets that come with Lightroom, I don't use. I will never use. All right, simply because I want my own presets. Okay, you can go here to where it says Manage Presets. It's going to bring up this dialog box. All right, and the one thing you're going to notice is that there's these little check boxes. Okay, if you uncheck them, it hides them. All right, so all these presets that come with Lightroom, all right, if I uncheck them, okay, all right, you can see here I have all these black and whites unchecked from these. The ones that are labeled classic are the ones that came from Lightroom 5 and Lightroom 6, all right? Those are the old ones that you know, way back when, okay? Once I hit save, you're going to notice that now I have a much cleaner preset tab. The only ones here are the ones that I created. Now, as you saw, I created some presets for this particular lesson. I don't want to keep those. I built those specifically for this. However, let's say you build a preset and you use it for a while and you say, you know what? This preset's not doing anything for me. All right, there's a couple of things that you can do. You can go to your preset. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take this image and I'm going to reset it. Okay. Reset it back to the default. Reset basically removes any edits that you've applied. And the lens correction one, this is the one that I want to make a change to. All right. I'm going to click on the lens correction. All right. And now the only thing that it's done is it's created these two. All right. Let's say for some reason I want to do a little bit of distortion. All right. Clean up, maybe remove some vignette or add vignette, whatever it is I want to do. I want to change. I want to make changes to this preset. All right. So I go ahead and make whatever changes I need to. All right. Then I am going to right click on that preset. All right. And it's going to bring up this little dialog box. And you can see it says update with current settings. Update with current settings. All right. And it's going to give you this update develop preset piano. It's very similar. The only thing is you can't rename anything. You can't shift it around in the folder. All you can do is say, okay, well, these are the presets. All right. Now, again, it remembered everything that I kept from the previous export preset that I made. So it's got my texture, my clarity. I need to make sure I uncheck those. All right. I just want these that are specific to this preset. All right. And I'm going to click on update. All right. So you can tweak as you progress and you learn more about your editing technique. And you say, well, you know what? I usually don't add 10% clarity. I've been adding 20%. So I'm finding that I have this preset that adds 10%, but I'm finding I'm going in and I'm changing this over and over and over again. All right, so I need to make a change to it. You can now, once you've identified what preset it belongs to, go in, make the change, update it, and now you're back to automation. Okay? Now, let's say you have a preset that you built for a very specific task. Like, for example, I may have presets that are designed for a specific customer. Once I am done with that customer, I no longer need that preset. I can go ahead and just right-click, brings up that same little context menu, and I just do delete. And it's going to ask you, do you really want to delete it? Click, and it's gone. Okay?
And the other way, you're actually just hiding it. You're really not deleting.
Correct.
And you can go back to it at any time.
Correct. But what you're doing is you're hiding groups. You're not hiding individual presets. You're hiding the groups. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in this case, I have my import preset. I don't need that because I already have one. I'm going to delete that one. Okay. And I have this vignette 10, which I am going to delete as well. Okay. And now I'm back to where I started. All right. And it's as simple as that. The other thing that you can do is you can't reorder them here. All right. It's not like you can say, I'm going to take this and move it up. All right. You can't reorder. All right. You can reorder folders. All right. So I can say, I think, actually, well, maybe not. I thought you could. On the export presets, you can reorder things. I guess you can't do it on these. My bad. I misremembered.
Okay. Are you able to rename them so that if you wanted them to be up on top, you can do the underscore?
Yes.
And do _1, _2 to rename them and put them in the order you want.
Absolutely, yes. So, for example, if I want these in a specific order, all right. So, for example, I want my vignettes to be 1 first. Oops. I'll do 1. Okay. I'll do my exposure, or my my noise. I'll make that 2. All right. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. And actually, you don't even need the underscore if you're going to use a number system. Absolutely.
That's really good for anal people.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, for me, there's a certain logic to very specific orders. All right. It could be, for example, when I do my edits, there's a specific flow that I follow. All right. And certain tasks I do early and certain tasks I do later in my edits. So my list, I want my list in the order that I tackle those tasks. All right. So yes, absolutely. Use whatever convention works for you. All right. So now in this case, if you're using numbers, you actually don't need that underscore. The underscore, all that the underscore does is it floats it above any alphanumeric property. All right. And the reason I use the underscore is because it's not very intrusive. All right. It's there, but it makes the rest of the label easy to read. Okay. All right. So, yeah, you can absolutely reorder things that way. Okay. All right. That was a good question because I didn't even think to talk about that. But yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Quick question.
Yep.
I use Nik software a lot, like for black and whites or to pop color. Or...
Yep.
Do you do a preset for that or no?
No. Simply because those are being handled by a separate program.
Okay.
You can build presets specific to Nik software, if I remember correctly. But
so I don't know.
But that's separate from Lightroom.
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty. Anybody else? Okay. We covered quite a bit. Hopefully, the takeaway here is you want to create something that's going to make your workflow easier for you. All right. And if you build a preset, make sure you build something that removes that preset. Okay. That way you can undo changes without having to figure out, oh, where in this whole big bloody list was it? All right. Especially like, you know, anything complex like hue saturation, tone curves, and things like that. All right. You don't want to be floundering. You want to be able to just very quickly move to what you need and just go ahead and remove it. All right. All right. Let's see. Clarity. There we go. This one, I actually need to make this 20 because I never go that high anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to update with my current settings. All right, check none. And this is clarity. Update. All right, and then I'm going to rename that from 40 to 20, and that's updated. Okay. Oh, I said I was going to talk about the ISO variant noise reduction. Okay. The ISO variant preset requires a minimum of 2 images to be selected. All right. So this preset's a little bit different than everything we've covered to this point. Okay. And what you need is images that are shot at different ISOs. All right. So for example, this bird here was shot at ISO 400. Okay. This one here was at ISO 100. All right. This 400. Let's see. Do I have anything at a higher? 800. I don't think I have anything shot at 800. But what you want to do is you want to find something. Oh, here it is. ISO 800. Okay. When you're dealing with ISO variant presets, the one thing I would suggest is build them according to your normal workflow. All right. So for example, normally I do not shoot much above ISO 800. Okay. Sometimes I will, oftentimes I won't. Okay. However, let's say you are a concert photographer, all right, and you're always shooting at 800, 1600, you know, or even higher with your camera. You're going to want to build according to that range, all right? So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 images, one at 800. So here's my 800. I'm going to go to my noise reduction. Okay. And I'm going to noise reduction to 800 ISO image. All right. And you can see. To set my noise reduction accordingly, right? So I like nice round even numbers, so I'm going to go 30, 5, 25. There we go. Okay. So there's my noise reduction for 800. Actually, let's go. Let's do 40 on that. Oops. 40. Okay. I'm then going to go to my hawk. Where's my hawk? All right, this was shot at 400. Okay. I'm going to adjust noise reduction accordingly on this one. 25, let's make it 10. Okay. Then I'm going to go to my ISO 100, and for that, I probably don't need any noise reduction. All right. That's looking pretty good. All right, well, maybe just 10. All right. Just because. Okay. So now I've done noise reduction on my range. 100, 400, and 800. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and select all three of those. So basically, I'm just going to use my press Control or Command key if you're on a Mac, Command key. I'm going to click on my first one, Control click on my second image, navigate to my third image, which one was it? Right here. Okay, Control click. I now have 3 images selected. I'm going to go to my Add New Preset, Create Preset, check None, make sure everything's clear, and I'm going to go ISO variant. All right. I'm going to label it number 2 because I already have one. Okay. And I'm going to go to my noise reduction. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that this bottom check mark where it says ISO settings, create ISO adaptive preset, I'm going to make sure that's checked on. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and click create. And here's my, where did I put it? Oh, I put it in the wrong place. There we go. Okay. Put it in the wrong place. Let's bring it up there. Can we? Yes, there it is. All right. So now, anytime I want to apply noise reduction to any image, whether it's ISO 100, 200, 400, 320, all right, what it's going to do is it's going to calculate the difference based on the preset for the 100, 400, and 800. It's going to calculate it, and it's going to apply that noise reduction to your image. So an ISO, if I have an image of ISO 200, let's see, do I have anything at 200 here? Probably not. I normally don't shoot anything at 200. But let's say you did, all right? All you have to do is apply that preset and calculate the noise reduction based on that ISO, all right? So it allows you, oh, my screen is flickering big time. It's the graphics processor. Sorry, folks. It allows you to build presets based on a variance from, your lowest to your highest ISO. And now you don't have to fudge around with, well, I need a little bit more here and a little less here. It calculates it for you. That is a big, big boom with Lightroom, the latest edition, the latest update. Okay. So I think that pretty much covers everything with these develop presets. So, of course, if you have any problems, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Or, during the Q&A session, the third Monday of the month, just bring it up there. I'll be more than happy to cover it. Okay? All right, folks. I ask a big favor, if you can, let your friends know about these sessions. Let's see if we can get some more people in here. Again, everything's being recorded. I will be uploading this so you can... Ooh, what? Oh, Bonnie, your mic's on. I'm picking up background noise. So, all right. Let your friends know. All right. Again, everything's recorded. It'll be posted to YouTube, so you can always refer back to any of the lessons that I presented here. And if you haven't yet, I ask that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to get my subscription rate up to at least 100 members, because with 100 members, I can rename my URL to actually read YouTube.com/Learn Photography with Duck. Right now, it's just a series of numbers and letters. All right. But if we can get to 100, that'd be awesome. I get my own URL. All right. So please subscribe, hit the notification button. I'm looking to eventually add more content besides these lessons. All right. All righty, guys. If there are no questions, hopefully we'll see you.
I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Awesome. That's what I want to hear. All right. Hopefully we'll see you next Monday, 6 o'clock, for Photoshop. I don't know what we're covering yet. If anybody's got any suggestions, I'm open to it. I usually wait till the last minute and says, oh no, I got to do something tomorrow. What am I talking about? All right. So if you have anything specific you want to learn, just drop it in the Facebook chat, okay? All righty, guys. Always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me tonight. And we will see you, hopefully, next Monday.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.